Hi, my name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel, Savage Reads. I'm back to the old background just for today. I will be moving around a little more, but I'm in a bit of a rush today. I'm gonna just stick with this one, and let's start. I'm really excited to talk about some of these books. I don't know how much time I'm going to have right now. So here in Spain, I take my daughters to school in the morning and they're there for a few hours, and then I pick them up for a 2-hour lunch. I need to go pick them up in a few minutes. We'll see how long I can film, and then I will come back later to finish talking about the books. So it has been a crazy week or so. I visited my sister in Prague for a couple days, which was a lot of fun, and I have worked on my stitchery. So let me show you where it's going. It is very much more abstract than I feel like my past stitcheries have been, and I'm not quite sure if it's working, but I'm going for it. I'm just sticking with it at this point. So it's not quite done, but I'm getting pretty close. If you've got, look at this. I don't know, I still need to kind of fill in this whole middle section a little bit with some grasses, I guess. But that is the stitchery. I don't know if it completely worked, but I don't know. I have done it. It is what it is, and I will finish that soon and start on another one in a bit of a different style. And let's jump into the books that I have read in the last week. So the first book that I want to talk about is a book that I have been reading out loud to my oldest daughter, and this book is Sabriel by Garth Nix. And this is a part of a series that is following a girl who grew up on one side of the wall, but she was born on the other side where magic happens and where the dead come back to torment people, and she has the responsibility to help the dead rest. And I forgot how much I liked this book. It really did work for me. I thought that I was going to be disappointed because I know that when I read books that I loved as a kid and I go back to them, a lot of times I'm like, why did I like that? That was terrible. I'm looking at Redwall, Molly Moon. There were a few that I've read to my daughter that I'm like, oh, why did I like that? But this was fun. I was really happy to revisit the Old Kingdom. I thought it was really fun, and my daughter really enjoyed it and was very engaged with it. So I'm really happy that I picked this up. Excellent book, and it does kind of feel like it is aimed at slightly older readers. My daughter is 8, and I think that age-wise, this is better for maybe a 13, 14-year-old, but it was okay. We were able to talk about things and get through the book okay, reading it out loud. But I do think this was aimed towards more teenagers than kids. But that being said, it did make it really engaging for me. It was a fun read for me to enjoy, and that always makes the reading out loud experience more fun when I'm looking forward to reading out loud along with my daughter, and we can be excited about the book together. And we are reading Lyriel right now, the next one, so I am having a good time reading these out loud. So a couple years ago, I read the book The Groundbreaking An American City and Its Search for Justice by Scott Ellsworth, and it was the first book that I have read that had talked about the Tulsa Race Massacre in 1921. And this book was very informative and heart-wrenching, and just discovering what happened and how it was covered up was so good. It was such a good book, so important. So this last week, I picked up Built from the Fire, the epic story of Tulsa's Greenwood District, America's Black Wall Street by Victor Luckerson. And this book is following the history of Tulsa, starting from right before the race massacre in 1921 and doing about 100 years of history and how the city has tried to rebuild, the things that were stopping it, the setbacks, and following these different families and their perseverance through horrible difficulties to try to rebuild their dream in Tulsa and in Greenwood. And I thought this book was excellent. It follows some of the lives of these people through this time. It follows the city itself, and it was so well researched and so important. It is a 5-star book. I think it is a great portrait of racism in the United States and how that doesn't just go away, how these different policies, these different things continue to affect people through today and beyond, and what we need to do to move forward to really rebuild and help these communities because of the things that have been ripped away from them and the lasting consequences that have happened. I thought that it was just an excellent, excellent book. You look at this horrible massacre in 1921 and you think, okay, well, they must have rebuilt and done better after that, or everyone left. But no, people stayed and they tried to rebuild, but then different racist policies, government roadblocks were set up that made it so difficult for them to be able to rebuild. And so I thought that this was just an excellent look at this and just highly, highly recommend. But now I've got to run go get my daughters. I will be back to talk about some more books in a minute. And I'm back. Woo. I got the girls back to school. We have a bit of a routine where we eat lunch, clean rooms, and then read books before going back to school. And my throat hurts. I read too much today. But let's talk more about some of these other books. I completely forgot to say on the last book, Built from the Fire by Victor Luckerson, that it was a recommendation from Caitlin at Bandy's Books. So make sure to check out her channel. And the next book was also a recommendation from Caitlin, so check out her channel if you have not before. I read The Storm We Made by Vanessa Chan. This book is a World War II book that is taking place in Malaya, and it follows a Malaysian mother and her being a spy for the Japanese prior to the occupation, and then after. The book is following the two timelines of Cecily as a spy for the Japanese, and then the timeline of when Japan is occupying Malaya and how much more brutal that occupation is and the difficulties that her family has and how it's being torn apart. And this book was a really interesting historical fiction book. I sometimes have a hard time with historical fiction as a genre. I think that there are some problems sometimes with how people use the genre, and I feel like this was the right way. I did not know a lot about what was happening in Malaya during this time period, and I think that this book did a really good job at bringing it all together. I think the only thing that I didn't love was the main character, Cecily, who was the spy and then the mother. I just don't feel like I ever really connected with her motivations super well. And so that was my only downside, but I thought the characters were really well done other than Cecily, and it was awful to read and very tragic, but an important read. And so this was a very good book if you are interested in the subject. So this next book that I want to talk about was a recommendation from Scott at Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. And if you aren't following Scott, what are you doing? Go check out his channel. I will leave it linked down below. I picked up Anita de Monte Laughs Last by Chotil Gonzalez. And this book is going with two timelines. We have our early timeline where there is this artist from Cuba, and she is stuck in this relationship that is very tumultuous, and her husband is trying to stifle her creativity, her culture, and she is struggling to get her voice heard. And then we have our more recent timeline where we have Raquel, an art student who is trying to fit in and to be recognized in her field, and also has a boyfriend who might not recognize her worth or her culture. And so you have these two timelines, and I thought that this book was so good while reading it. I think the character of Anita was so alive, so vibrant, and I really loved that. And then the second half had a lot of this magical realism that I thought worked and was very effective, and I thought the story and the themes were really important about how women's contributions have been buried, how people who are not white do not get the recognition that they deserve, and how culture influences our art and our lives. And I thought there were so many interesting things in this. Really loved it. Was going to be my whole review. That was where it was. And then when I finished the book, I found out that this book was based on the life of a real life artist. Now, did I get that from reading the book? Maybe there was a dedication in the front. I don't know. I missed it. I completely missed where it said, oh, this is based on the life of this actual real life artist from Cuba. So what am I missing? So I thought, okay, usually, if something is based on somebody's life, I would at least get an author's note at the end saying it was inspired by her life, this and this and this. But where was that? This book is actually based on the life of Ana Mendieta, and her life is the same. Her art is the same. The book referenced so much of her art, her life, her everything, all the twists and turns that happen in this book are this woman's life. And it was weird that I didn't feel like that was more front and center. Where was the big author's note that recognized who this was, right? That seemed weird to me. But I also have to, kind of give some credit to the author of the book, because I wouldn't have gone and looked at Ana Mendieta's work unless I'd read this book. And it was very interesting. I spent a whole morning looking through the things that she had done, her art, and the book describes the art so well. So while reading the book, I really liked it. But then I start thinking, did the reason I found Anita de Monte, her character, to be so vibrant because it was a real person? And where is the line between historical fiction and stealing someone's story? And was this meant as a way to introduce people to this actual real life artist? Or was it not? Because where was that super acknowledged? And for a book that was talking about people trying to bury her art and her name, to not put the actual artist's name front and center did feel weird. So it really complicated my feelings on it, and I don't know where I stand because I still really liked the book. And I think that the messages that the author was trying to share through the book were important and probably were things that the artist, Ana Mendieta, would probably have endorsed, that, search for connection with her Cuban homeland and all that kind of stuff. I think that that might have been very interesting and worthwhile, but does it feel a little weird knowing how based it was on this real artist and taking her story? So I don't know how to feel about this. And if the book had ended with a full-blown author's note explaining the actual life of Ana Mendieta and her art, I think the book would have been fine, but just that slight twinge of, why is she using this story? Nothing's changed. It's not enough of a fiction to say, oh, it's just loosely based on her life. No, it is the life of this artist. And so that was kind of strange for me. So if you've read this book, let me know. I just don't know where to sit on it, because really, when I finished the book, I thought 5 stars. That was excellent. So many interesting themes. I really liked the characters. I thought they were so vibrant, especially Anita. And maybe she was just vibrant because she was a real person. And that is what I have read the last week. If you have thoughts on these, let me know, and I will see you all on the next one.